Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. I'm Barbara Scafidio, editor of Prevue, and I will be your moderator for the next hour. Today's content was based on a new initiative of Prevue's, a survey with our strictly corporate direct meeting audience, which we plan to repeat every year. So this is a baseline. I know we call it a trend survey, but it will be a trend survey next year. I am thrilled to have gathered together a real powerhouse panel. We've got Ann Gorman, Vice President, Sales and Marketing at Streamline Events, Haley Greaves, Senior Director, Global Events and Operations for CWT Meetings and Events, and Colleen Radabau, CMP CIS, Customer Service Manager, Incentives and Engagement for Meetings and Incentives Worldwide. So why don't we start by each of you telling us a little bit about yourselves and your organizations as it pertains to your incentive with you. Ann?
Oh, sorry. There's a little bit of background noise there. Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Gorman. As Barbara said, I'm the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for Streamline Events. We are an agency based in the Bay Area, supporting a wide range of programs, including a number of incentives, which are always fun to do. I've been in the business for about 25 years, all of that on the agency side of the business. In pretty much every role. I started out as a travel director and worked my way through registration and program management, sourcing and contracting into account management and leadership. So I've kind of seen incentives from all sides. I'm glad to be here today.
Well, thank you. And we were just together last week at Prevue's Survival Strategy Summit in New York. So it's good to see you so frequently here. So let's move over.
Always glad to be a part of this.
I love having you. Haley, if you could share.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Haley Greaves, Senior Director, Global Operations and Events at CWT. CWT, I think most people know, is a global agency. I lead the teams across EMEA, NORAM and LATAM and APAC, all of which have specialist incentive travel teams serving our clients across many sectors. I've worked in the events industry for my entire working career. I'm not going to tell you how many years that is because that would be awfully embarrassing. But I started my my time with incentives actually in a very small incentive house in London. Moved on to various other events, but have always carried incentives through and another for them.
Well, thank you for being here and giving us time in your early evening to
Great to be here.
Nicole, what about you? We'd love to hear.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Nicole Rodabat, and I'm a Customer Success Manager at Meetings and Incentives Worldwide. M&IW is how we abbreviate for us. I'm actually based in Wisconsin. M&IW is a primarily virtually based company. We have our headquarters in Wisconsin, but we have our associates located all over the country, and then additional team members in the UK and Latin America, Asia as well. So in my role, I am a relationship partner with our customers who focus on incentives. So I have a number of different accounts that I help manage, and I work with our event experience managers and our experience and design managers to really craft and create that perfect incentive program for our customers. So incentives are all I've ever done. I've been on the agency side of the business for about 20 years now, and I love them. I breathe them in and out, and I love helping our customers create very memorable experiences for their attendees. So thank you for having me here today. I'm so excited to be part of this panel.
Thank you. It is an industry that once you're in it, you never want to leave. I will vouch for that as well. 30 years. I really want to take a second to thank our sponsors. We could not do this webinar without their support. Naples, Marco Island, Everglades Convention and Visitors Bureau, Explore Asheville, and Casa de Campo Resort and Villas. A quick housekeeping note. This session will be recorded before we get rolling, so don't worry if you can't stay on. It will be posted on our website shortly, and you'll receive a link via email. And as with all of Prevue's webinars, we are a preferred provider, and you will receive CEUs from the Events Industry Council for your participation today. So we have a couple of polls to get the pulse of the audience. I do see you're from just all over the country, which is fun, always fun to see. Jennifer, if you could roll the polls, we're going to do 3 in succession. So question 1 is, how many years have you been in the meetings incentive industry? 0 to 5, 6 to 10, 11 to 15, 16 to 20, or more than 20. And here's what we've got. A very experienced audience. So we're looking at, I'm not even going to try to do the math, but the vast majority, other than 28%, so 3/4 pretty much, is over 10 years of experience. And the next poll, please. Yeah, this is one we thought could help us shape our conversation, and we're very curious to how it compares with the results of our own survey. So what is the average length of your incentive programs? Is it 2 to 3 days, 4 to 5 days, 6 to 7 days, or longer than 7 days? Choose one. Okay, and that's pretty consistent with the industry standard. So 4 to 5 days, very few longer than that, and a smaller percentage, 2 to 3. And here's the last one. What is your average per person budget for your incentive trips? That includes air. There is air. You could give us a range. And okay, so we've got a large percentage under 5,000 and 34% over, and then a fraction over 10,000, which is a high spend. Thank you. Thanks for that, Jennifer. We're going to, like I said, this is the first survey we've done. So you're not going to see comparisons. You're just going to see our audience's answers. And then we want to use this as a benchmark and do it every year. But I think their answers are pretty revealing. So I've got Gary behind the scenes. He's going to handle the slides. And I just want to let you know that all of this info is on your console. So you have a PDF with this info and more that you can download while you're on the call. Okay, next slide, please. So we, just a little methodology, we went out to 382 strictly corporate direct meeting planners from our audience of 38,000. Like I said, in-house meeting planners working for corporations, so there are not third parties or agencies answering this survey. They come from pretty much what you would expect, a variety of industries, heavy on financial and insurance tech and manufacturing, also automotive and direct sales. And yes, Salesforce is still the primary target, dealers and distributors as well, or the channel incentives at 22%. And there were companies who answered to speak about incentives that are not tied to sales quotas, and we do have a question in there further along about non-travel types of awards. So if we could have the next slide, please. So the good news, and I'm sure everyone on this call can attest to it, 2023 was, definitely a year on the rise. 60% of companies reported their sales increased from 22, and 51% had, and that's their corporation sales, and then 51% had their own budgets increased compared to 2022. So next slide, please. The good news is continuing and even getting better in 2024. And I am seeing this across the industry. 58% said that their budgets will increase and 24% stay the same. So there is still a small number of companies out there. It's not even that small, 18%, however, who are still either coming back or, industry based, not able to increase their incentive budget. Next slide, please. One more just piece of information, extremely important. It syncs with the survey we just did. The average per person budget for 2023 incentives was 6,177. And the audience said that increased from 2022. Half of the audience stayed the same for 30%, and 21% said they actually had a smaller per person budget. So enough with stats. They can too many in a row and we'll lose you all. I would love to hear from our panel about how all of this compares to what you're seeing with your own clients. Why don't we start with you, Anne?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And we're seeing this reflected in the incentives that we're supporting. Budgets are up, headcounts are up, and I think it's just a reflection of how much more comfortable everybody is with the fact that the pandemic is well behind us, and we're charging ahead. I do think the 18% or so of clients who have their budgets decreasing, I think some of that has to do with maybe a little bit of right sizing of workforce. After we had a lot of companies and a lot of our clients went through these massive hiring sprees as business was growing, and I think we're seeing a little bit of right sizing of that now. And so I do wonder if that's where the budget's decreasing has to do with the fact that the headcount is decreasing, so budgets are coming down, and we're right sizing the size of our incentive trips a little bit.
Okay, does Nicole or Haley anything to add?
No,
Yeah,
okay. Go ahead, Haley.
you go, Nicole.
I was going to say, I agree as well. We are finding a similar trend. I would say that there's a good number of our incentive programs where their budgets are slightly higher. I wouldn't say extremely higher, but it is good to feel that some of the organizations we work with, they're understanding that inflation is playing a part in what needs to happen for a budget increase. And then there are still some that are at a static line, and a few that have decreased. But those decreases are also tied to other corporate factors, an acquisition, a merger, or a dissolvement of a certain division, et cetera. So they're normal business functions, not necessarily that companies are thinking that incentives aren't worth investing in. And along those lines too, the other thing that we work really hard on here at MNIW is to really be in an advisory capacity. So a lot of times our customers come to us asking for a benchmark, like what are you seeing across other similar incentives to ours? And so we appreciate the fact that we can see a wide swath of things at one time and be able to give that feedback of similar incentive, they put a 5% increase on their budget, et cetera. So we're able to give guidance in that regard as well with the number of incentives that pass through our doors.
Right. Haley?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with the figures to the most part. I think just putting a different perspective on it, obviously, I have teams based out of Asia, for example, and they've been a little bit slower to come back. They were slower to come back from the pandemic as well because of the nature of what was going on in that market. And I would say that they're more consistent. So 2022, 2023 was a consistent rather than an increase. Certainly for the NORAM area that we work in and clients that we work with in that area, we are seeing an increase, particularly one industry that hasn't and has cut back quite a bit is insurance, because ultimately they suffered quite a lot, I think, within the pandemic too. So just a different slant.
You make a really good point there, Haley, too. I mean, insurance in general as an industry is struggling based upon the number of, major natural disasters that have occurred in, a percentage of increase even over the last 5 to 10 years. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on from the incentive perspective as well across that market. And I think the other thing that, you know, I would give advice to the audience today on is educate yourself on things like airfare increases, because airfare is such a factor in so many of these budgets, and we all know that it has just gotten ridiculously expensive in some cases to fly from point A to point B. So by using, you know, data to help make your case, that can help increase your budget, which you will need to help pay for increases in things like airfare, food and beverage, et cetera.
Nicole, I love that you brought up how much inflation has impacted incentives. That's just been huge. And I do think that's a big part of the reason why we are seeing budgets increase or stay flat at minimum, but increase. And I made this comment, Barbara, when we were together last week. I think we went through a year in 2022 where incentives are such a huge reflection of brand. And so when you make choices and make cuts to your incentive budget, and you're sacrificing things like the quality of the food and beverage that you're offering at events, or, you know, the decor, the activities, any of the inclusions, when you're sacrificing that, it's felt. And I think we went to those programs, and the executives and the stakeholders went to those programs and weren't happy with the brand reflection that was happening. And so that's, I think, what's contributing to budgets going back up again now in 2023 and 2024. And so if you're having trouble with getting stakeholder approval, educate them on what inflation is doing and the choices that you're having to make. There are such great stats out there on the increases in food and beverage costs, airfares, that lean on your agency partners to help you with this, because it is very real and it does impact the attendee experience.
Yeah, I would echo that, and your comments and your thoughts are great on that, because I think whilst budgets are increasing, I would question, and it would be a great exercise to do, whether budgets are increasing in line with inflation. Because ultimately, yes, your budget's increasing, but it doesn't mean you're going to get any more for it, because everything has increased naturally.
Yeah, I knew exactly what you were going to say when you started speaking there, Haley.
Well, we have a great stat about when companies have had to cut, how they manage to cut and keep the experience. I think that's one of the most challenging things that incentive planners do. And I agree with you. Is it in sync just with keeping up, or are we actually adding, you know, enhancements, or, you know, increasing the quality of the program? That's a big question. You just gave me a great idea for an article, Anne. Thank you. I think it would be great to put together an ammunition article that people can use to make their case based on the increases in 20.
Yeah, we have a blog post up on our website that has some good stats in it. So,
so thanks. Just keep feeding me ideas there.
Yeah.
Okay, so next slide, please. Oh, here it is. The what I was just
great
referring
segue.
to. Right. So on-site gifts, I hate to see that, but it is something that can be cut and not particularly necessarily noticed. And this is a big one, promotional. You know, I don't even know if they're. I mean, mailings are. That's something that used to be absolutely huge when I started in this industry, and I've just seen it less and less. You know, the gifting, the pre-event gifting versus the on-site gifting. So companies are building in more on their own time, which translates to some meals and expenses that are covered by the qualifiers. Having fewer managers attend the trips. You know, I wonder if the attendees even notice. Choosing second-tier cities is certainly an option, but only 21% they were choosing lower-tier properties. So that's important. And F&B, very few were changing that experience, because it is a big part of the overall experience. Any other, do you have clients that have done, you know, other creative cost-cutting measures, clients whose budgets are down? Is there anything you guys can add to that?
I don't know if it's an addition more than an agreement, really. I think, and when you say second tier cities, certainly when we look at incentives that are coming out of our European clients, what we're able to do for them is propose cities that are a little bit more off the beaten track. So they're more exciting and interesting, but also because of that, they're slightly less in terms of budget. It means that it's harder to plan because you struggle to find some of the higher end, F&B and hotels and things like that. But it does ultimately keep the cost down whilst keeping it an exciting and an incentive destination, because it's somewhere that you may not have naturally chosen to go as a trip on your own.
Mm-hmm. I think the one thing that's not in these bullet points that I thought about when reviewing these questions is time frame, dates. I mean, we know historically, if your company runs on a traditional calendar year, generally incentives are awarded in the first quarter, or at least the second quarter of the calendar year. So if you're, able to, if you have the business model where you can rework, the timing of your incentive and the qualification award period, it would allow you some more flexibility in destinations where you might be getting a shoulder rate, or you'd be willing to, think outside the box on not traveling in such a specific prime time to a given destination. So that's something that I think is imperative for our entire industry to keep in mind, not only looking at second tier cities, which is becoming more and more natural, but also thinking about when you're traveling and the date patterns. Can you be flexible with it? So encouraging conversations around that as well.
What I think is so interesting about all of this is so reflective of attendee sentiment. So we're listening to what the attendees are telling us they want, and using that to help us control our budgets. Attendees are telling us they want more free time at these events. Attendees are telling us they don't necessarily want all of the room gifts that for the most part get left behind they want one nice quality gift rather than, nightly gifts of stuff that, they'll leave behind. But they are telling us that they still want the luxury property. So I thought that was really interesting, that this is really a reflection of the attendees, and it's great that we're listening to them and that we're using that knowledge to our advantage.
I just want to say, we have hundreds of people on this call, and share your ideas if there are things that you're doing that are creative to save cut costs or anything else we're talking about. The chat's open and there's some good ideas floating around there. So
the other tricky part when you speak about choosing second tier cities is potentially it's offset by the airfare increase if you're not going more into a hub destination, depending upon the destination you're going to. So sometimes you can, pick something that you think is going to be cost saving, but could hurt you in the long run the other way. So it's just looking at it from all different angles. And the other thing that I thought about on this line would be really the decor and entertainment. So there's a lot of different ways to get bang for your buck. So if you've traditionally had a large decor and entertainment budget, I challenge you to, look to your supplier partners to say, how can we re-envision this for 75% of the original budget? The use of lighting versus linens and things like that. So, or perhaps, reusing decor elements from event to event is always a very practical cost saving measure if it makes sense for the program. So I know that decor and entertainment are the place that, those involved in incentives love for their creativity to fly and soar. But I do think that that's an area where we generally find that we can shift numbers here or there if we have to, as we're coming down the pipeline of the budget.
I'm just going to read a few of these great comments that we've got coming in here. So Allison mentioned more free time, fewer hosted activities. A couple of these were about airline purchasing seats months in advance for those city hubs they know will be filled. So they're just like buying tickets in advance. Another person in the audience said no more business class. The winners. Are you laughing? Is that even something does that work?
I mean, it's a huge savings, let's be frank, but there's also a cachet to it too. So again, it's a corporate culture element. It's not something that we can say is right or wrong. It really depends upon what is dictated by your leadership and what's the norm,
Yeah, works in some cases and not in others. So
Yeah.
moving the event to September, that's interesting because Prevue has held a few of our summits in September, and it enabled us to get terrific properties, opens up opportunities that we might not have had otherwise. So I wanted to ask you about gifting, because I'm curious. It's something that we cover quite a bit editorially. There are incredible, more than ever, companies that do on-site gifting, everything from, sandals to, I just saw hokas. It's just unbelievable how that part of the industry has evolved. But yeah, we've got 44% of these people saying they're cutting the number of gifts. What are your experiences around on-site gifting and amenity experiences versus like in-room gifting? Anyone?
The being able to have a choice, being able to pick something, the on-site gifting experience where they have options and they can go in and select exactly what they want is a huge, huge hit. I think people really, they don't necessarily want the same thing as everybody else on the trip. So to give them options is wonderful. And I think, there is still a place for the beach towel and the sandals and the sunscreen and the hat, and but really understanding what your attendees do and don't want is important. And I think there's a sustainability component here too. We really don't want to be wasteful, and so I think that's something you need to think about as well.
Yeah, I would second that. One of the things that we've done at a number of incentives is gifting stations, and also creating almost a token or a voucher. So we take people to a local market area and they can spend their token or voucher and choose something that's, fundamentally a lot more ethical, because we haven't shipped it from somewhere, and it's probably not plastic, and it also invests money back into the country that you're visiting.
Mm-hmm. I thought what Anne said earlier about the idea of one high quality gift versus a lot of smaller gifts was very on point. I think about myself when I've had the opportunity to be in a situation where I was receiving gifts. I too would much prefer something that's of a higher value and a better quality. That said, I do think that there is, incentives are all about the feeling, right? It's about the experience you're giving to those people who work so hard to be there. So that said, a lot of our customers really do still look for that nightly touch point in some way. So maybe it's not a gift. Maybe it's, a beautifully crafted set of postcards that they can mail. Maybe it's something smaller but has meaning behind it and isn't necessarily a tchotchke or something to that nature. The other thing that we've found to be very successful is customizing your gift to the activity perhaps they did that day. So it takes a bit of coordination to make it that specific and that personalized, but you're more likely that that person's going to appreciate it because it's so personalized to them. So I don't necessarily think that reducing the overall budget on the gifting is something that we're seeing dramatically across the board as a way to save money. Maybe it's shrinking a little bit. If you're getting into a budget crunch, you might have to just make choices and shave off little pieces of various things. However, I do think it's still a very important element of the program. It's just about doing it intentionally, meaningfully, and to my other panelists' comments, sustainably and locally sourced where possible.
That is all over the chat. I think Oya, I hope I'm pronouncing her name correctly, said it best. Small gifts with a local flavor or touch versus no,
Yeah.
It's there are creative ways to keep the gifting going, and the sustainability around choosing local artists. They call it I think it's called the domino effect, where if you spend money in a community, the people who make the money, the local artists, spend it in the community. It's a really ethical, smart way to go. So I think these are all great ideas. The one I want to delve into before we move to the next slide is the lower tier properties. I know only 21% said that that's an option, but there's an expectation around property that is probably the primary, along with destination, part of the the win, the experience. So if you lower that in any way, have you had that experience, and what's been the impact? Or do they just not? Do they stay at the same level, your clients?
We have
our attendees. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Haley.
Sorry, no, you go. I was just going to say we haven't. I think fundamentally that's one of the areas that I would protect, because ultimately you're creating an experience and a standard and an expectation of that experience. So you do often see regular people on an incentive within an incentive group, or people from the same team that compare and contrast. We all know they go and compare and contrast the room size that they have when they're at the incentive trip, let alone one hotel from the year before and the year after. So I think sacrificing and reducing the level of property could leave a bitter taste in people's mouth.
100% agree. We're seeing the same thing there. You protect that property level at all costs. It is, one of the fundamental things we do when we're designing incentive trips is creating those moments and giving the attendees something that they wouldn't or couldn't do on their own. Yeah. And the property choice is one of the first ways we do that. And I have yet to see a client who's willing to sacrifice that.
Yeah.
That said, one of the other techniques to help with your budget but still maintain the property level would be like a multi-year agreement, or perhaps you're going to contract like pre-sale rates that they're offering before they even open. Risky, I know, but it is a choice. So that's a way we've been able to get into some really nice places for some of our customers when we didn't have the big budget to spend. So alternate ways to think about your sourcing further in advance is always better. As far out as we can go is what we want to try to do to help secure the best possible pricing and date selection.
I think we have 100% agreement there. So if we could move to the next slide, please. So a few more stats from the survey around group size and trip length. And this was not a surprise. The majority, 58%, report group size under 200 attendees. Just 15% plan for more than 500. And this includes partners, which I did not put in the PowerPoint, but this includes the group size. And for length, 5 days, 4 nights is very popular, followed by 3 days, 2 nights. A small fraction, and we found this with cruises too, sponsor trips that are 7 days or longer, just 12%. Anything to add around group size? Are you seeing any changes? Obviously, the standard has always been 200 is a little like more like, I always think 250, but why don't you tell me what if anything you're seeing around these 2 points?
I was actually surprised that so many of them were under 200. I think if I think about the incentives, they're a little larger, the ones that we manage, and I think it's about realizing the structure around the trip and making sure that you're structuring those rules to be really driving the growth of the company. So it's not like we're taking the top 200 and that's it. It's looking at the sales force and where within your sales force is your growth coming from, and making sure that you're including those people in the trip. It's not necessarily just automatically the top go every time.
Okay.
I would say these are in line with what we are seeing across our data points internally at MNIW as well. Our average is 4.5 days, which is a weird number to come out of data, but it really has to do with the transatlantic and the trans-Pacific travel opportunities. And I think just your destination drives this. So, I have a customer who they had always done 3-night domestic incentives, but they want to do Europe. And I said, you're going to have to increase your length of time. So, that the destination drove that decision for them. It wasn't something that they were consciously looking like, we want to make our trip longer. And then as far as the average number of attendees, I would say I can tell you that our average number of attendees in our incentive programs is slightly higher than that 200 mark, but we do have, I would say, around that 15% overall that are higher as well than the 500 mark. So that's right in line with what we have across the board from our book of business. And because when you have an incentives of 750 people, it's a lot of people to make it customized and personalized and to find space for, frankly. So it's definitely something that, as Anne said, if you can tier your incentives or find a way to provide different incentivizing options for your audience, if it gets that big, I think you're going to find more success of people trying to achieve and to strive for that highest level.
Yeah, I think I would say the same. This does reflect our sort of figures. I think the 5 days, 4 nights is generally, you would see for some of the longer haul destinations, and the lesser, which is a fairly obvious statement to make. Apologies for that. But yeah, I mean, it echoes our stats too.
If we could please move to the next slide. So Prevue did an advisory board meeting at IMEX, and we coined 2023 the year of Europe because so many companies started going back to Europe. And we, the survey respondents, 52% said that they are back doing international. And by international in this case, we're including Mexico and the Caribbean, and 17% considering. So, that's a large number traveling out of the country for their incentive programs. If we could get to the next slide, please. And here are some of the destinations. It's an interesting collection of destinations that this particular group of 400 people specified, but Canada, Mexico, and the Caribbean are still at the top of the list. However, absolutely European, the classic European destinations of London, Paris, Vienna, and so forth were mentioned. And we started seeing a small percentage of our respondents who are doing long haul again. I am really curious to hear what your clients are doing, and if 24 we're going to be seeing more long haul, or certainly Europe. And someone just said Montreux is one of the prettiest places I've ever been. So just had to throw that in. And do you want to start with that? Where are your clients going in 24?
Yeah, we have a lot of our clients are interested in looking at Europe again. Clients who have for the last couple of years stuck closer to home, Mexico, the Caribbean, are absolutely looking at Europe again. And it's so great because, the Caribbean and Mexico provide such great opportunities for the sun and fun, but you go to Europe and there are these amazing opportunities to have a completely different experience where it is more about the culture and the cuisine and exploring a new place, looking at places like Croatia or Morocco, doing things that we're definitely seeing a lot of the UK and a lot of Italy and south of France, very popular right now.
Okay.
I like to see on this list here on the European cities, not only do you have some of the big ones, the London, the Paris, Vienna, but I like to see the smaller cities in there too. Seville, Montreux, Lisbon. I mean, maybe Lisbon's not considered small, but that I think is something that we will be seeing in more of as the survey continues year over year. We're going to start to see some of these more smaller destinations rise to the top of the interest levels, because for those that have traveled on incentives, been there, done that sort of scenario, they want something different, as we spoke about earlier. So developing the infrastructure in those locations, though, to help support corporate groups, maybe those that have a corporate American influence to them, is another part of our industry challenge going forward. So, Anne just spoke about Croatia, Montenegro's kind of on the radar as well. can we get the groups there? Can they have the experience that we at the level we know they need to be at? So that's where our challenge is going to come in the next 3 to 5 years of developing some of these more off the beaten track sort of destinations. One thing that's on here, and I guess maybe it would fall into Caribbean, but Costa Rica is very popular for us, continues to be a very requested destination from our customer base as well.
Right. And Haley, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing a little bit of a pattern of Iceland at the moment, actually, and that's popping up and cropping up for us quite a lot. I think
With
also.
summer, I would think.
Say again.
In summer, I would think.
Yeah, summer and winter, not the winter, but yeah. And also in terms of South America, we're seeing quite a lot of requests inbound from Europe. So that's a key one for us at the moment. But reflective of everything that you see here, I think we're seeing a pattern of out of NORAM trips to Europe. Italy is always one that's highly requested, and there's so much to see and do, and we can really get the right quality within some of those Italian cities.
And also like Prague, Budapest, you know, like as you said, Italy in general, but looking at the smaller places like the Puglia, the Sicilies, you know, to help keep it fresh. The one thing that's not on this list that is definitely something that's always circling in our world would be South Africa. So it's definitely a bucket list destination for a lot of American travelers for sure. And so that's something that comes up when we're in the world conversations that we have often include South Africa.
Yeah,
so
South Africa is a great destination as well, isn't it? I mean, you can really run a fantastic incentive in South Africa. There's so much to offer.
Great infrastructure, lots of choices, great partners.
Yeah.
Are your clients ready to take those long haul trips? I mean, or have they started booking long haul? Can you share anything on the long haul side? I mean, I see quite a few here, including New Zealand. I'm sure Australia is in there too. But why don't you tell me what they're booking long haul or considering?
I can tell you it's a small percentage of our business right now, maybe in the 10 to 15 to 20% that are considering it or have actually moved forward into booking it, but it's not necessarily for 24. It's often for 25 or beyond. So I think that there is still the feeling of we're leaving our little comfort zone of the domestic Mexico, Caribbean. We're looking into Europe, or maybe we're doing the Hawaii destination kind of thing like that for a distance. But it's going to take probably another year, I think, for more of our business to be looking at something that has a longer budget, a longer fly time, and is maybe a little bit more out of an individual's comfort zone.
Right.
Yeah, small percentage, but it is there. Bali is definitely part of the conversation. Singapore is part of the conversation for a number of our clients. So there is absolutely interest there. And it does get selected, but I agree it's a smaller percentage that are willing.
Right. And those were pre-COVID, a lot more travel to those destinations. So it's only a matter of time before that's going to come back too.
And I think a lot of it has to do with how long do they really want their top people out of the office?
But not only that, I think it depends upon the mix of the attendees, because if you have just US-based attendees, or if you have more of a global-based audience, Americans aren't very great at flying long distances. So, it depends who you're speaking to as to how far they're willing to fly.
So I just for out of interest, we do have a planner from Turkey on the call. And she mentioned that for Turkish companies, Cambodia, Vietnam, and New Zealand. So I think that's
pretty cool. Yeah.
Pretty cool info that we don't always get because most of our audience is US, although they are with, like you said, multinationals, and they're bringing people from various parts of the world. So interesting. If you could please do the next slide. We've got just a couple left, and then we'll open it up to questions. Of course, we're going to, someone asked, are we going to talk about? Absolutely, they're so important. And 59% of our audience uses them. 12% is considering. That is a large majority of the people who answered. Next slide, please. So the question is, what length are they choosing? It seems 4 to 5 night is the most popular, and then those 3 to 4 night. But that's 66% of the people. Week-long cruises, just 13%, like you said, take their people out of the office for that long. So what is your experience with cruises? I'm eager to hear. And what types of cruises are being booked? Are they river cruises, European? Anne, why don't we go with you to start?
Yeah, this is cruises. I feel like kind of having a moment. You look at every 2024 trends report for incentives, and it's, cruises are back. Cruises are of interest. What I think is so great about the cruising industry in general is there is such an opportunity, regardless whatever your group wants, there is a cruise that fits that. If they want the really, cultural trip to do those European river cruises is an amazing experience. If they just want, free time and an all-inclusive experience, you've got, great options in the Caribbean. Chartering and taking over a ship and really creating this complete custom experience for your group is so wonderful. Yeah, we haven't booked any cruises yet since after the pandemic, but we have a number of clients who are interested in talking about it.
Yeah, I think we're the same. We haven't booked any since pandemic, but cruising is one of those things, isn't it? Everybody sort of, you say the word cruise and everyone's like, have you cruised? What's it like? Would you? And I think everybody's quite intrigued about cruising itself. I think one of the things also that we will potentially see down the view of cost saving and budgets and things like that is people tagging on some meetings into their incentive, and that's so doable within a cruise, because you have the right facilities and the cost effect of it too.
It's amazing meeting space on, I'm thinking of Royal Caribbean and just fabulous first class meeting space. You don't know you're on a cruise ship. So
no.
I'm laughing because just last week I was on a cruise with a customer as they're preparing for a 250 person group for an April sailing. And so I personally haven't cruised much myself for my own personal vacations. And I really haven't done much of it from a professional perspective either. So this was a huge learning opportunity for me last week. And here's what I came away from it with was, it's pretty darn easy. So, I mean, they just have their systems and their processes in place, and it just kind of rolls. That said, I think it's also very important for us to understand that it's different than a land program. You can't walk into it with your planning process and your, SOPs in place because they don't fit. They don't mesh exactly, because they are kind of an industry on their own with all kinds of regulations and, international guidance across them. They have certain ways that they have to do things. And so you have to take a step back and be proactive in understanding their perspective on things too. But the great news is that we were sailing on a celebrity ship, and they were so willing to try to make whatever we envisioned happen. They really wanted to make the experience great. So that was very refreshing to see that they were welcoming this large group, even though we are, 250 people of the 3,500 that are going to be on the ship, in April. So I think that there's great things on the horizon for cruises. I think it's a great option for incentives. I would highly encourage, researching them and thinking about them. But that said, you just have to approach it a little differently. So know that going in.
Right. We have a great comment from Jeanette, who's on the call. Hi, Jeanette. And she mentioned needs, which someone else on the panel mentioned, happy hours, hotels, entertainment, like the rooms, entertainment, everything's included. That ease of use is a real selling point for cruises, obviously. And one thing we haven't mentioned is the fabulous all-inclusive resorts. I'd love to know a little about the use of those, and do you have clients that prefer those? There's a real loyalty among certain all-inclusive brands where people, certainly on the FIT side, use them regularly. Do groups. Does anyone have any all-inclusive resort experience they could share with the group?
Yeah, it's a really, really great attendee experience being at an all-inclusive resort, to really just let go and not have to worry about all right, is this included? Or, what's the company paying for? What am I on my own for? It's just so easy, and they really do enjoy it. I think, Nicole, your comment about cruising, you really have to kind of go along with their program. There is some of that at all-inclusive resorts as well. They have a way they do things. They have a standard that they set for their guests, and you sort of have to go with their flow a little bit more than doing things your way. But a wonderful attendee experience.
Yeah,
the biggest
I agree.
Sorry, go ahead, Haley.
You go, it's fine, Nicole.
I was going to say the biggest thing to an all-inclusive resort is that you can maintain your budget so much easier. That's, I think, what a lot of our customers really enjoy about that. And the all-inclusive market has gotten so savvy with the way they're growing their pipelines, location-based, brand-based, quality-based. I mean, the old standby of you go to an all-inclusive and it's terrible food. I mean, yes, those still exist out there, but in general, they've really elevated themselves to be competitive with, the non-all-inclusive market.
Right. Haley, anything to add?
No, Nicole took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to comment around the budget piece. Just, there's always that conversation around when does the drinks limit, how much have we got left? And there just is none of that when you've got an all-inclusive, especially if you've got one exclusively. Everybody's just so much more relaxed. It's great to see your host just saying, yeah, let's have more wine, let's carry on, let's stay up later. And there's none of that concern that we're going to tip the budget out of balance.
And there's a real understanding among the all-inclusive companies that work with our industry about the quality levels that our groups expect. If we could get to the next slide, I believe it might be the last slide. Yes, so we haven't touched on individual incentives. That's really, is that even your area as within your companies planning individual trips?
Not for us, no.
But
yes, we do.
82% of the respondents, that is a huge number, said that they offer individual incentives. So is Haley, are you the one who said yes?
Yeah, I mean, we're a TMC, so of course we deal with individual travelers. Individual trips for incentives, probably not as much.
Okay.
Yes, we do offer them, Barbara. They're a supplementary, option above and beyond our group incentive travel offerings, and it's best created where you can kind of provide a series of packages that are curated within sort of a certain budget range, and then offer those as choices to the qualifiers. The benefit to the individual travel is really that the attendees, they can kind of go on their own time, and they can take the people they want to take with them, et cetera. So it makes it a little bit more customized, but on the flip side, you lose that group networking energy and environment and a relationship building that you get in the group environment. So there's really great things about both of them, and it is something that we offer to our customers where the need is right. But there's value for sure in individual incentives and when used correctly.
So I think if we could exit the PowerPoint, that would be great. I would be remiss if we didn't talk about CSR as it relates to incentive programs. And we've had a lively discussion right before this call. But if you could all maybe jump in and talk about what you're seeing around CSR programs for your incentive clients, and ideas or examples or trends, whatever you'd like to share. So I see Haley nodding.
Yeah, I think in terms of trends, it's absolutely, if you look back maybe 10 years ago, it was something that people wanted to do but didn't really want to do. They wanted to do it because it felt like the right thing to do. Now, actually, the attendees of the incentive are asking for this to happen. They're being pushed by the delegate need and the need to have that experience and give something back. So we are absolutely seeing more of an ask for that, and we've been able to put together some fantastic things.
Anne, anything?
Yeah, we have a CSR component to every single incentive we do, and it is some of the most special moments that stick out. If you think about the memories that are being made, when you take a couple hours of your time to even doing something as simple as getting everybody in the ballroom and packaging up meal kits or anything like that. In an hour, the volume of meals that can be packed and donated is astounding, and the look on everyone's faces when they realize that. Getting people out into the community and doing some sort of afternoon give back. There's such meaningful moments, and Haley's absolutely right. The attendees are pushing for it. They want to know that the company they work for aligns with their values and that they are giving back to the places that they're visiting. It's a real cultural immersion opportunity also, which attendees tell us they really want in incentives.
And once you start doing it, they look for it. So
yeah, that's a great point, Barbara. I think what I like about CSR is that you can scope it any way you need to. So maybe you want to dip your toe in the water and maybe do something very simplistic where they bring school supplies or they bring, sneakers or books or something along with them to donate to the local community. But you can scale it all the way to, doing one of your optional activities as a half day offsite, doing something in the community. And the other thing that I really like about CSR opportunities is that you can easily tie them into your corporate, goals and values to make sure that it fits the company's vision as well. So maybe you have a support on, child welfare as something that you're looking for. Look for options in that destination that help carry that through. So it's a complete 360-degree, overview from the company and the attendees understanding how their company fits into the culture and into the destination.
Right. It's just an important part of how you can, just create a culture around your program and it becomes something that is part of, built into the experience every year and people so look forward to. So we're getting toward the end. I'm happy to, if you've got one or two questions from the audience, great, please share. We had also discussed one other topic that is on everybody's minds, and how this relates to incentive travel is huge, and that is audience demographics, the demographics of your winners, and how, I've heard predictions that eventually companies are going to, do a couple of different choices of trips because the experience is so different. But we have to pay attention with every activity that we're really awarding people at the in a way that's appropriate for for their age group. There's so many age groups in our audiences now. Where do we even begin? This could be an entire webinar. And in fact, Prevue is doing an entire summit on this topic in May. So if you take a look at our website, it's called Next Gen Engagement Strategies. But why don't we share a little bit about that? Starting, Nicole, I see you smiling. So do you have something you'd like to share?
No, I agree. I mean, I think that we are on the cusp of a very innovative time in our industry where we have a chance to create amazing experiences for qualifiers that are different than ever before, that we've ever seen before. So the creativity is going to be key, partnership is going to be key, communication. So all the things that you would normally think of, but kind of flip it on their head and encourage people to think outside the box. What can we do and how can we do it differently to help keep these new generation of attendees engaged?
I think one of the guiding forces for us all can be the fact that, regardless of what age everyone is, what they want in an incentive is personalization.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so building that into the way that you're designing the event, giving them options with, the choices they have for optional activities, the choices they have for gifts, choices they have for the way they can spend their free time, choices at meals, making things where they can really go and, kind of design their own experience in terms of what they're eating. If you think about it from that perspective, that can kind of be how you navigate, kind of all these options and this very unique spot we find ourselves in.
It is, and it's more evident than ever in the past, really, since we've come out of COVID.
Yeah.
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 Well, we are flat out of time, and I could do this for hours, but I really do appreciate our esteemed panel. You brought so much knowledge and experience to this afternoon, and thank you very much to our sponsors and to everyone on the call. I hope you got a lot out of it. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.